If you are a Calgary investor, somebody who just moved to Calgary, somebody who does real estate business out in Calgary, this video may annoy you. However, I have been very vocal about Calgary real estate and why I don't like it as an investment for probably 2 years now. And it finally looks like Calgary's real estate market is starting to roll over. So let's get into the data. So year over year, prices are still up across every product type. You got semi-detached up 5%, detached up 4%. You got row homes up 2.1%. You got apartments up 2.6%. But if you come and you look at the, I don't know what you want to call this, soft data, sales are down 18.8%. New listings are up 26.7%. Inventory is up 102.4%. So if you guys remember, basically from 2023 to the end of 2024, we had something very similar happen here in our market. And prices didn't really start going down until, the back end of 2024. And if you come and look at months of supply, it's still really low. Like if months of supply were to stay here at 2.3, you would see continued upward pressure on prices. But this should continue to go down with sales dropping and new listings going up. Now, if we look at the data over here, actually, let's go a little bit down. So here we are. Okay. So new listings, March 2024, 3,173. This year, 4,000. Inventory, 2,500. This year, 5,100. So more than double. And months of supply this time last year was 0.96, under 1 month. And now it's at 2.39. So almost a tripling in the months of inventory. And then days on market has gone up 43% from 20 to 29. And you can see now the sales to list price, the average sale is no longer selling over its asking price. Now it's 1% below it. So that would signify downward pressure on prices. So I haven't liked Calgary as an investment for a while. I did like it towards the back end of 2021 and maybe, halfway through 2022. But the reason why I liked it is because what people fail to realize, in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, and I'm not asking you to agree with it, right? But what I think people fail to realize is the only reason why Calgary was on a bull run is because prices got too expensive in BC and Ontario. That's it. It was just the next best place that's affordable within Canada, or that's still affordable. But as more and more people move there, as the prices got bid up and it becomes less affordable, it takes away the largest reason why somebody would actually move there. Like before, if you were to move from Surrey and then buy the same thing in Calgary, you might save $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. Today, if you sell that home and you move to Calgary, you might only be saving $800 a month. So at what point does it become not worth it for somebody to move from Ontario or BC, right? Am I going to uproot my whole life, change the schools of my children, change careers, change jobs, move my whole life over here, pay for all those moving costs to save only $700 a month? Is it worth it at that point? And I've talked about this and I've talked about this and I've gotten absolutely eaten alive in the comments for doing so.
The time to invest in Calgary was a year and a half, 2.5 years ago, and today I wouldn't touch it. This is why. Calgary has been known to go through very long periods of time where the real estate market has sat stagnant. I don't have the chart in front of me, but I do believe from 2007 to late 2021, there was ups and downs in between, but for adjusted for inflation, you pretty much lost money. So for 14 years invested in real estate, you lost money. And there's a lot of talk out there that, this time in Calgary, things are going to be different. The economy's changing. There's a growing tech sector and blah, 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 blah. And maybe, but realistically, nothing has changed over the last 2 years, aside from the fact that BC and Ontario have gotten super expensive and Alberta is just the next best place to live that's cheaper. So I'm personally not willing to take my bet on that currently right now and then maybe get caught holding the bag for 15 years. Now, would I have bought in the last 2 years? Yes, I would have. In fact, I made videos about buying in Calgary because it was a good momentum play. Today, I would much rather park my money in BC, in a market that I know is going to have a supply problem at some point. There's never been a period in time where BC real estate has just done nothing for 15 years. Maybe I shouldn't say BC, maybe Lower Mainland. Lower Mainland has never had that happen where they've just sat stagnant for 15 years. And I just think it's a much safer play. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe something drastically has changed within Calgary's economy that I'm not aware of that is going to completely change the way that their real estate market functions over the next decade. I don't know. I'm not willing to take a bet on it.
Now, all this being said, it depends who you are, because if you're a cash flow investor, there's still a lot of cash flow to be found in Calgary. I'm certain there is. Or like in Edmonton, right? Like I think Edmonton probably still has like a good 12 months of runway in front of it, but I'm really just guessing. I made the video on cash damming last week. If you owned a condo here and you wanted to cash dam a condo in like Calgary or something like that, there's ways where it makes sense for a lot of investors, but I don't feel like that's the bulk of the people buying there. The bulk of the people buying there are looking for capital appreciation, like most of the investors we have here in BC, right? Because a lot of the investors in Calgary are investors from BC and Ontario, and they're taking the same frame of thinking from BC and Ontario, and they're applying that into Calgary, right? Most of them aren't cash flow investors. They're just people looking for that, that bump on equity. And the way it looks like that's coming to an end, right? Because you have inventory skyrocketing up double from last year. You have sales dropping. All of the things that we saw in 2024 that has now led to this situation where prices are falling, inventory is, basically at all-time highs in the Fraser Valley, so on and so forth. And the reason why I will always lean towards parking my money in BC as opposed to Calgary over the long term is because Calgary obviously is tied to oil, which is now tanking, right? But on top of that, it's so much harder to bring supply to market in BC. Like I think even going through like the permitting process and all of that is like half the amount of time is what it takes here. But not only that, if you're a developer and you want to build townhomes in Calgary, you can just be like, all right, that plot of land right there, we're going to do 500 townhomes. It's going to have a sick man-made pond and a nice community center with a gym and blah, 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 blah. But here in BC, you have to go get your realtors to knock on 500 doors and then convince 4 to 6 people all in a cluster to sell their homes and all move at the same time. And that's very difficult to do because within those 6 people, everybody has different expectations. I want 3 million. I want 1.5. Well, if that guy is getting 3, then I want 3. And well, I don't care about money. I want to retire here. And oh, well, my kids go to that school, so I'm not ready to move. And it is very difficult to convince 4 to 6 people all in the same cluster to sell and then move. And then even when that happens, now I believe the process of actually going through and getting approved and, going through the development process takes basically twice as long as what it does in Calgary. And then here's the other thing, right? Housing starts soar in Calgary, stall elsewhere in Alberta, right? So this is posted March 17th of 2025. Housing starts jumped 44% compared with a year earlier, according to the latest statistics. CMHC said there was blah, blah, blah. In Edmonton, there was blah, blah, blah. What am I looking for here? So housing starts in the country's major population centers were down 17%, led by Vancouver, where housing starts plummeted 48%, and Toronto, where they tumbled 68%. So you have Calgary jumping up 44% in housing starts, and you have Toronto and Vancouver down 68 and 48% or something like, or 42%, right? So what ends up happening in Calgary when they go through these boom and bust cycles, and the reason why a lot of it happens is like obviously oil, but 2, because it's so easy to build there, it's also very easy to get overbuilt. So they already have inventory up 100%, and now housing starts now have gone up 44%. So they're probably going to be overbuilt for the next little while now because they have more inventory in the pipeline and they already have way more inventory on the market than what they had last year. But keep in mind, I'm not in Calgary. I don't know the nitty gritty of that market. I'm just reading you the statistics and giving you my opinion on these statistics, right? I'm not a realtor out there. I don't work in that market every day, but this is my opinion, right? And I wouldn't own in Calgary because I just think it's too easy to bring stuff to market. It's too easy to build stuff. Sorry. It's tied too heavily to like one sector in the economy. And I know too many people who bought condos in the 2000s that haven't made any money on them, like literally nothing. So that's my opinion on Calgary. And I think you're actually probably going to see people moving. Like, I think you're going to see interprovincial migration slow down substantially. And I think you're going to see a lot of people who maybe moved to Alberta start to move back to BC and Ontario because the prices have gone way up in Calgary, while the prices in BC and Ontario have been coming down. So that delta that existed 2 years ago has now closed substantially. And then you also probably have a lot of people in Calgary who maybe have owned a home since like the late 2000s that have now made like $200,000-$300,000 in equity on their home. And maybe they've always wanted to live in BC, because I talked to a lot of Alberta people in Alberta that are like, they've always wanted to move to BC. They just, the timings never worked. Well, now it's looking like a pretty good time because you have prices that have come down substantially in BC. Meanwhile, the prices have come up. They've got their $200,000-$300,000 equity, and they can make that lateral move. But again, I'm just speculating, and I could be completely wrong, but that's my unfiltered thoughts on Calgary at the moment. And yeah, I could be completely wrong. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling in the Fraser Valley, book a time to chat with me using the link down below. I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.